All right, you got a new phone. Let's see if this works. All right, I'm going to talk about breath work. For those of you all who don't know, I have a background in clinical medicine and then recently embodied experience with a severe chronic illness, from which I'm grateful to have recovered and I'm still getting there. But I've learned a lot. So, what I'm going to share about breath work is coming from, obviously more from this embodied experience and my learnings from ancient medicines, traditional medicines, just whether it's yoga, whether it's qigong, whether it's indigenous breathing methods, and so on and so forth, and also a lot of neuroscience and a lot of research which has been coming out from Western medicine. So this is going to be my key takeaways that I'm going to try and summarize. Number one being breathwork is going to be one of the foundations of healing from any complex chronic illness. Now, again, don't get me wrong, if you're on the severe end of the spectrum, breathing can be really hard. Trust me, I've been there. We're going to get there, but I'm talking in general. If you're able to incorporate a breathing practice, that is going to be foundational. And I'll tell you for what reasons. Again, we're talking about consistency. We're not talking about hours of breathing a day. We're talking about a consistent practice, specifically focusing not on breathing as a physical exercise. And that's key here, right? This is where I'm going to be now moving away from the lingo of Western medicine. I'm going to try and expand our horizons, expand the dimension of our understanding of breath work. So, again, a consistent practice and mostly really connecting with your breath and hence with your body and hence with your entire internal milieu. It's going to be extremely important. And breath work and breath is one of the best ways to do that. And I think without that, it's just going to be a little hard. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but I feel it's one of the foundational tools. The second thing which I feel, again, is that not to look as breath work as another physical exercise, right? It's not about taking in oxygen or moving out of carbon dioxide. It's beyond that. And this is where I which is where I probably nudge people, which is what helped me, was to sort of expand the understanding, the dimension of understanding and move. I've read all the literature, read so much literature, books on it from the Western neuroscience perspective to biofeedback. The universities at Yale and Ohio, Cleveland Clinic, all over are now making sure that breathwork autonomic rehab is a part of it because guess what? It works, right? But I want us to sort of again expand that understanding, right? And look at it not just simply as moving in oxygen and carbon dioxide or moving in air or expanding your lung capacity or all that kind of stuff. No, just move a little bit beyond the physical realm and think about it as moving in energy. And that's a great place to start. And again, this is something which is now embodied within me. It took me a while to get here. I'll be very honest. Again, I've been trained in clinical medicine to look down on indigenous methods in general, right? That was my training, right? And it didn't really work for me, to be very honest. But as I made the shift, and it will happen, I believe, for almost anyone who is even a little bit open to looking at as moving energy. And one great way to look at it is the definition of pranayama. Now, in Ayurveda and yoga, pranayama is not considered to be simply the exercise of breath or the exercise of air. No, it's the exercise or it's the movement of life force or pranic energy, prana, which is subtler than air, subtler than breath. So when we are breathing in or breathing out, we are moving in the vital life force that is around us. And you can call it chi, you can call it pranic energy. You can feel it in whatever language and culture you feel connected to, but it is more than simply physical molecules. Again, this might take time for people to get to this point, which is fine. Okay, I mean, I'm just giving from my experience, it took me a while, right? With that foundation, what was really helpful, again, moving forward, how can breath be helpful, right? Well, there's a few ways. One of them is it's one of the key ways of regulating or harmonizing or befriending your nervous system. Use whatever terminology sits well with you. A lot of chronic illnesses, especially chronic complex illnesses, contested illnesses, whether it is chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, long COVID, fibromyalgia. I'm talking about a large breadth. Again, this is one cohort of illnesses. We're also talking about just in general people who are not even at this end of the spectrum. In general, people who are not feeling well, whether it's anxiety and stuff like that. Understanding the nervous system regulation, which is again been making the rounds now everywhere, which I'm happy about. Breath is a great way to get in tune with your nervous system. And the first step is to simply noticing your breath. So that kind of meditative exercise of just noticing your breath. Again, throughout the day, just having a general idea of, what am I breathing like right now? A lot of times when I'm at work, when I'm a little stressed and I just notice myself just holding my breath in, and you're going to notice that too. And then you sort of let it go. That sort of exercise, again, it's simple stuff. Just getting in tune with the breath and noticing it, right? That's one way to get in tune with the nervous system, from which we can move beyond now to actually regulating a nervous system. And again, there's a lot of data on this. If you prefer to go the Western medicine route, you can absolutely find meaning and the mechanisms and the functionality there of how breath will be able to affect your heart rate, which will then have coherence with your brain waves. And there's a lot of good books on this, which is how I started into all of this. We do able to be able to regulate your nervous system, harmonize it. So if we are, if our nervous system is a little active, then slowing down the breath will slow down the heart rate, will slow down the brain waves, and you will get into a calmer state. Now, again, this is in general in a realm for people who are able to do this. For a lot of people, slamming the brake might not work initially, but just in general, regulating our breath, slowing down our breath, the 4-4-4-4 breath, very famous, right? What are you actually doing? You're slowing down your breath. You're going down from whatever 14, 15 breaths per minute that a lot of us are breathing at to around 6 breaths a minute. And again, this number will be different for people to find that coherence between the heart and the brain. But the point being that you're going to be able to slowly regulate your nervous system. Get out of the fight-flight zone sometimes into this, what we call the green zone, and we can talk about that later, which is a ventral vagal nervous system zone, which is where you're calm, which is where you are in sort of a meditative state. And that brings me to another point. A lot of folks struggle with meditation like I did, and still do sometimes, to be very honest. Guess what? Breath, and again, in especially in yoga and pranayama, breath has always been a tool to get into that meditative state. We slow down the brain waves, we slow down the heart rate, and it becomes easier to meditate. So to get into that state, it's helpful. To regulating the nervous system, it's helpful. And then finally, somatic breathing, which I feel is just mind-blowingly powerful. Is to be able to direct our breath into areas of our body where we have congestion, pain, constriction, whatever you might feel like. And this gets more into somatics, which I'd love to talk about later. But being able to bring our attention to these areas where we feel energy is either stagnated or stuck, breathing into them, expanding into them, and actually releasing that. So that's more of a somatic breathing technique. So again, breathwork goes all the way from preventative health maintenance to in many ways helping ease burden symptoms and even releasing trapped energies. So again, long story short, breathwork is powerful. It's definitely one of the foundations. Doesn't mean that if you take a breathwork course, you will automatically be healed, although I have seen people do some really wild stuff with breathwork. But think of it as a foundation. If you're healing, if you're recovering, the foundation needs to be built slowly. Take your time. Don't be too aggressive with any kind of breathwork, with any modality, I feel. But anyways, long story short, let me know if this was useful, if you got any questions. The content on this page, it'll be changing a little bit and will be connected to liberation and decolonization. Promise you on that. But yeah, anyways, thanks for listening.